Hello and welcome to the show. Let me get my chat menu out here. I have to fool around with that. And let me go ahead and bring Leo in. If you guys have any problem hearing Leo, just let us know. He was having a little bit of microphone issues. So if we have to, we'll get rid of that and do something different. Right, right, Leo?
First time in my life that I'm not talking loud enough.
You're going to have to talk a little louder. I can't hardly hear you.
No, I said it's the first time in my life that somebody told me I wasn't talking loud enough.
There you go. Pretend you're a preacher and you're really trying to get the guy in the back row.
I don't want to pretend to be a preacher.
Well, I mean, loud like one. So,
Yeah.
welcome to the show tonight, guys. We are going to be talking about the paranormal. As some of you may know, what really my interest first was really UFOs, and then it went to the paranormal with the ghost stories and stuff that I'd heard growing up, and so that kind of fed me off eventually into Bigfoot. But over my lifetime, I've lived in some places that were, I guess, by today's standard, I guess you'd call them sketchy, kind of spooky type areas, and lived in a haunted house for several years. And also tonight, we are going to be doing a giveaway, so stay tuned for that, and we'll tell you how to get in on all that in a little bit. But yeah, the paranormal is something I've been interested in for a long time. I've actually conducted paranormal investigations. I've done several documentary films in haunted locations. Uh, Hopefully, we can talk about some of that at some point tonight. But I think mostly Leo and I are going to talk about the time we lived in haunted locations. I know Leo also lived in a haunted location, and so hopefully you can get something out of the show tonight. Uh, we're interested in hearing your taking your questions and hearing about your stories as well. So if we can't get to you tonight, you can always contact us on our website or on our Facebook pages or something like that. But Leo, let's just go ahead and get things started with you and tell us a little bit about your background and go right on into your haunted locations.
So with me, it wasn't so much. It wasn't an interest in it. We were just living with it, and it wasn't really a big deal for me until I was probably six or so, and I actually saw the ghost. Up until then, it was you could hear slippers going up and down the stairs. You'd be woken up by a loud bang. But these were things that it wasn't constant. So, but it was enough that we were all used to it. So, what had happened is the people that owned the house prior to my grandmother, uh, son comes home one day, finds his mother was using the chamber pot, and she died on the chamber pot.
Well, for those who may not know what the chamber pot is, it's the bathroom.
Well, if you don't know what a chamber pot is, you had it too young, and we're too old.
Some people
You
don't
had,
know
you had it
what
too
it is.
easy when you were young, and me and Tom are just old.
I can go farther than that. I can call it. I can remember when it was just called a slop jar. So,
Well, we had another name for it, but no, I'm not going to say it on the air. But,
all right, go ahead.
yeah,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
no, that's all right. So, Buddy comes home. He finds his mother in that awkward position, and she's passed away. He goes into the other room, gets out the rifle, and shoots himself.
wow.
So, um, I remember us as small kids going into my uncle's room where the guy had committed suicide, and you could pull up the carpet, the ugliest green carpet, and you could pull up the carpet a little bit over below the window, and you could still see spots of blood on the floor. So, but again, this wasn't where I actually lived in the house. It was different for me than it was for my cousins. My cousins were a little more freaked out by it than what we were, because we were there and we lived in it. And where I slept in my grandmother's room on the floor, um, it was not far from the spot where she was found. So everything obviously had been a new floor put down and everything like that. But So I wasn't sleeping in pea stains. So so I was sleeping there, and I probably 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, I wake up and I see this woman sitting on the edge of my grandmother's bed, and it looks like she's smoking a cigarette, but it looked like those plastic cigarette holders that the fancy people used to wear used to use in the
Yeah.
movies.
Yeah. That hangs way off. Yeah.
Yeah. So I could see the red glow at the end of the cigarette, but I could also see that there was, it was too long to be just a regular cigarette. So I was mad because I thought it was my mother, and she had quit smoking the year before, so I was furious that she was there smoking a cigarette, snuck into my grandmother's room to sneak a cigarette. So I started saying her name, and I don't know, I said it 3 or 4 times, and my grandmother sat up in bed and she rubbed her eyes and she said, "What the hell do you want your mother for this time of night?" And as soon as she was done rubbing her eyes, the woman went and turned into, if you were to take sand in the palm of your hand and let it go, it was like she turned into, say, like sprinkly sand, and she was gone. So
Was there any
anyway,
color to it?
there was, but there was so much color to it that I can't tell you exactly what the colors were. But it was really sparkly.
Vibrant.
Yeah, it was really shiny and sparkly. But there was blues and different colors like that in there. But um, there were so many colors that it was more of a brightness than. Uh, so anyway, my grandmother was already awake, and I just said, "Never mind, I'll tell you in the morning." So needless to say, I didn't get any sleep for the rest of that night. So I go down for breakfast in the morning, and I'm talking to my uncle, and I told him what I had seen, and he said that wasn't a cigarette, and he said you already know it wasn't your mother. He said, and it wasn't a cigarette. Apparently, this woman uh, used to smoke a pipe, and when people would come in, she'd
Ah.
take the pipe and put it down behind her back and let it drop on the floor. So I described the woman to my uncle, and he said, "Yeah, that's Aggie. That's her. And she was smoking a pipe." So uh, that was my first time actually getting a visual. I mean, you could feel. You'd walk through cool air sometimes in the house when that house with two wood stoves was very rarely cold, except first thing in the morning.
Was this woman any relation to you that you know of, or?
No, not blood related. Family, very close families.
And she had lived in the house prior
Yeah,
at,
that's
at
where
some
she raised
point.
her family. Yeah.
Hmm. Well, that's interesting.
So that was my that was how I went from being just someone that lived with it to wanting to hear more stories and paying a little more attention to when company would come, paying a little more attention to what they were saying because I had an aunt that actually a couple aunts that will not sleep in that house for any by any means. They just absolutely wouldn't do it. One of them had been home from Ontario, and she woke up in the middle of the night sleeping on the couch. The couch was off the floor, and as she sat up, the couch dropped back down. Now that's uh, that's a little too much for me right there. But several different people in the family have had encounters that they, you know, just absolutely refuse to stay there much past dark. So, but that was my that's where when my ears kind of went up and like I want to know more about this because I just saw somebody physically there and then disappear right in front of me. So it's
How
one
long
thing.
did you live in that house?
Uh, I've lived there a few times. That time I was there from the time that I was 2 until 9 or 10, I think.
Oh, a long time then. So you lived there a good while. So I'm sure you had plenty of things go on that was weird or seemed out of sorts.
Yeah, but see, up until that visual. It just wasn't that big of a deal. You would think hearing a gunshot in the middle of the night when there is no gunshot would be a big deal, but again, it's not something that happened every night. It would just wake us all up, and Mom would come into my grandmother's room and say, "Did you guys hear that?" And after a while, we just knew what it was and got used to it. But there was a lot of people seeing a little something over here, a little something over there. Um, I know my uncle, after my grandmother passed away, it really did a number on him after looking after her for so long. But he swore that she would come into his room and talk to her at night. So I mean, that's three different ones going here at the place. So it's but on the flip side of that, my father and mother lived when they lived in that house together. Dad doesn't remember having anything really go anything that couldn't really be explained. But dad got along with the woman that was found on the floor. Dad got along with her really well, and she didn't get along with a lot of people. So I don't know if she just kind of left him alone because of that, or what. But yeah,
Well,
we were close families, but there was a little bit of bad blood there.
well, what about the guy that committed suicide? Did anybody ever see him or anything
Uh,
like that?
I don't know that anybody's had a clear visual, but usually from there it's a loud bang or a loud thump, and again, walking that everybody's in bed, but you can hear somebody up walking around. The most common thing was the slippers going up and down the stairs because that's when you hear slippers scuffing
Sure.
someone scuffing their feet.
I know that. I know that sounds very well.
That's it. Well, that's a part of it. Yeah, it's a very common thing in a house
But
like that.
thinking about the guy that committed suicide and hearing repeatedly hearing the bang, that would be kind of what they refer to as a residual haunting, which
Mm.
is something that kind of plays over and over like a tape recorder. But now the woman sitting on the bed, that was potentially something that would be interactive with you, that would that you could that moved, or you could would respond to you in some way. But the bang is just almost like a tape recorder sounds like, playing over and over at certain times.
Yeah, and like I said, it wasn't an every night thing, but you know, every couple of months or whatever. Now the walking on the floor, taps turning on and off, that kind of thing was pretty frequent. But did I didn't really it didn't really bother me compared to other stories that other people tell you. It didn't really bother me until the night that I saw her, and uh, I agree with you about the gunshot thing, like that being a residual thing. But on the other hand, when I spoke, thinking that it was Mom, and I kept saying Mom, and she didn't turn her head or anything. She was looking straight ahead and just kept
It could possibly
going.
be residual too.
Yeah.
That happens as well. I've seen a little bit of both of that, the residual and something that's you can interact with. Uh, but the I've heard like screams and such like that. Hopefully I'll get into some of that later. But that's something that's kind of eerie, that you hear. There's nobody there, but you hear somebody scream. It's kind of eerie. I would imagine even hearing a gunshot would even be more so.
For the people that have stayed there, because sometimes every Friday and Saturday, the family packed down into that house. But at the end of the night, generally, unless everybody was, people are getting a little, not they're not in the best shape for driving. I can think of one person, one of my aunts and uncles. They were in no shape to drive home. Ordinarily, she wouldn't stay there, but they did stay, and it happened the night that they stayed. And her husband absolutely freaked out. So it was unnerving for them, and that made me more nervous watching them freak out because we didn't. It really didn't bother us that much.
You said that you had lived in the house uh, other times later on in life? Anything go on then when you lived in there?
Actually, when it all stopped, as far as I know, and again went back there thousands of times to that I spend a week, or I just go up and visit and spend a weekend. Um, Go up and help with doing the wood and anything that needed to be done on the property, going up to help them. Once the house, those floorboards were torn up, um, walls were taken out, new roof put on, all new floors put down, everything stopped. So, to the best of my knowledge, except for my grandmother who passed after that, apparently visiting my uncle. And I haven't slept in the house since my grandmother passed, not because of anything like that. It's just it was too hard. Yeah, I've only been there twice to visit since then, and it was just because it was too hard to be there.
I can understand that. Uh, a lot of times, though, excuse me, my throat's bothering me today. A lot of times, though, people are reluctant to tell if they have seen something in a house or experienced something that would we consider supernatural or paranormal. They don't want to talk about it. I guess it's much like Bigfoot sightings that you that you feel like you'll be made fun of, or people think you're crazy or losing your mind or something like that. I would say that's probably the reason why.
Yeah, and but on the other side of that too, though, is that I find ghosts when it comes to ghosts, every family, everybody has some sort of ghost story that's been
Oh
passed
yeah.
down, at least passed down through their family. They tend to end it with, well, but I've never seen anything myself, just so they don't seem crazy. They can still tell the ghost story, but they don't want to say they've had one of their own because they don't want to seem crazy. But I think it's accepted a lot better than Bigfoot. But still, there are a lot of people just don't say anything, or they won't say anything outside of their family.
Well, that's me. That's the first. I guess my first introduction to ghost stories were through my parents or friends or my parents that would come in and would tell certain things that happened. I remember one instance. They talked about my grandfather. I think it was my grandfather who would walk. We have a railroad track behind our house here, and they would walk the railroad track, and something was hitting his leg, and he would reach down and kind of brush it off, and he looked down, finally looked down and seen it was a dog with no head. Apparently, the dog had been ran over by a train at some point, and it still walked the railroad track. That was a story that was told, gosh, when I was just a little bitty kid. Uh, then there's another one too, a bridge. There's a bridge it's in Pineville. If I'm not mistaken, it goes over into Wallsend, and there was a dog or something there was a dog that was killed there. And for years after that, they'd see the dog walk halfway across the bridge and jump off. I never seen it, but I know I used to have a business downtown Pineville, and a lot of the younger people had told me they had seen it, seen the dog walking across the road, out across part of the bridge, and jump off the bridge. So I don't know. I guess that would be a residual type thing too, as well.
Well, not far from actually down at the bottom of the mountain, as if you when you're heading into town. Uh, some of my family members, aunts, uncles, and some of my older cousins were on the way home from a dance, and they saw the typical, um, I guess, headless lady that
Mm-hmm.
you hear
Yeah,
about, the gray lady and stuff like that.
sure.
They
Yeah.
saw it, and I'm telling you, when they got back, they saw something because we all got up out of bed. There were I don't know, six, maybe seven of them packed in the van, and they were really, you know, freaked out by the whole thing. And we were there. I was basically there just watching. I wasn't going to be able to say anything to calm them down. I was only a little kid, but yeah, they definitely saw something. And what they said they saw was a woman, uh, everything but the head. The head was gone, up into the ditch, in front of the van, down in the ditch. And coincidentally, where she would have went down is where the old um, stagecoach trail. that actually runs right up behind my grandmother's house. That would have been the old stagecoach trail. So who's to say that there couldn't have been that was kind of the legend, that there was a wagon wheel went over her neck and it snapped her neck and all this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
There's no record of that or anything, but that was basically the local story on that one. So she had been seen several times, and I don't know what they saw that night, but I know they saw something.
Yeah, I've even heard, some of these stories I probably need to write down. I remember one about uh, my grandfather, or I think it was my grandfather. They'd come out and the dogs or something had been barking. They'd come out and seen this. He seen this white ghostly figure. You're talking about a lady in like a flowing dress, and she was going through the woods. She ended up going through the woods, and he took out I think it's a 45, and just like blasted it. He always carried a 45, and just kept blasting it. But of course, it had no effect. But we have several legends and stories around here about the lady in white. We got a local place called Booger Mountain, where when you ride across it, supposedly a female passenger will get in the back of your car. Uh, and it's called Booger Holler because there's quite a few other odd things like Bigfoot sightings and stuff in the general area. So, but the big thing is if you go across Booger Mountain, there's a chance that she's not headless, but a lady will get in the back of the car with you, which is kind of interesting.
It is, and there's a lot of similar ones that type of thing that they're almost universal. So you wonder, is it universally told and went started in one place and it just spread, or does this same type of thing actually happen? And with what we know right now, there's really no way of knowing that. You can dismiss it as well as just an urban legend that just differs from town to town. Well, that may be so, but it may be that the same type of thing has happened in multiple areas. So
that place called Booger Mountain, and like Jimmy said, sometimes there's an area there called Booger Holler. It used to be really the main road to go into Corbin, Kentucky, and it's kind of a sketchy road. I've not went across it. Gosh, I don't know forever, but I would like to go. I plan on going across. I wanted to go across it last year, and I didn't get a chance. Uh, but used to that was the only road in and out, and I'm sure it had a lot of accidents and who knows. It's kind of out of the way, so I'm sure there was a lot of nefarious stuff going on. And you find places that's called Booger Holler, Booger Mountain. Usually it's because they've seen things there. And
yeah,
like Jimmy's talking about there's also a Booger Holler there here close in our area, close to him. But there at Booger Mountain, there's a hollow there at the bottom of it. It's called Booger Holler. I call it Booger Holler. I had a friend who lived there for a while. I don't know if he still does, but he did for years.
well, see, and that's, you've actually gone out and done the actual investigations with equipment and all of that. And I had made a
Oh yeah,
post the other day on Facebook asking about ghost hunters, because I don't watch the TV shows. I don't. I
I
have
used
plenty
to.
of friends that I have plenty of friends that are into that kind of thing, and we're going to have some on the show in March actually. But I don't know if I. That's something I've gone back and forth on. I don't know if I would actually, with what I experienced there, and then two other times in my life, I don't know if I would actually want to go and purposely stir something like that up, because again, you don't really know what you're stirring up. So I haven't had anything drastically frightening when it comes to ghosts. Odd stuff. And uh, in 2009, a friend, actually my best friend as a child, uh, he passed away, and 9 months after he passed away, I at the job I had at the time, I was on call 24/7. but between 11 a.m. to like 1, and then again at 5:30 in the evening to 6:30 in the evening, I had to be in the office. So um, I was getting ready and to go down to the office in the morning. So I just kind of had my feet up on the couch, and I looked down the hall, and he's standing in my hall, and I could see him from the knees up. I couldn't see anything below his knees, but the really calming thing about this was before he passed away, he was very sick and had to go on a lot of medications, and it really put a lot of weight on him, and it bloated his face up and
Mhm.
and all of that. And but when he was in my hall, the weight was gone off his face. He still had his mustache that he had always had as an adult. He was wearing a gray sweater with a red kind of zigzag design on it that I recognized that he had when he was younger. Um, but he was perfectly healthy. He had gone back to his normal weight, but again had the mustache that he had as an adult. So that I found that one very calming. But on the other hand, when I got down to the office, I walked in to my boss's apartment, and he said, "You look like you've seen a ghost." And I said, "I just did."
Just did.
And I
But
told I
go
told
ahead.
him what happened, and it was he was just he kind of reassured me that he was just letting you know that where he's at now, he has his health back. He's not
Mhm.
in the health that he was before, and so that I did not. I mean, anytime something like that happens, it's going to rattle you. But it was a totally different feeling than the first time, or even the time that I was laying on the couch and kind of in and out of, when you first wake up, you're kind of half asleep and half awake.
Yep.
Well, I tend to sleep with my arm under my pillow and sticking out. I felt something grab my thumb, and when it happened, I grabbed back. So when it took me, it seemed like just a few seconds. I could have fallen back to sleep. I don't know, but it seemed like to me it took me a few seconds, and all of a sudden I snapped out of it, and when I was like, "What just happened here?" There's nobody there, but yet I
Mhm.
felt someone squeeze my thumb, and I squeezed theirs back, or at least their thumb, their finger, or something. I did squeeze back, and it just seemed natural, like it just naturally happened. But then I snapped out of it, and I'm like, "This is not normal." So
Nobody there.
there's nobody there.
You was talking about paranormal equipment. If you can see over my shoulder there, I have actually got a device set up. It's called a REM pod. Basically, in a nutshell, what it does, it creates a kind of a force field around it. If anything breaks that force field, an alarm will go off and lights will come on. And the reason I set it up was because we are talking about paranormal, and we have seen a few things in this house. Not that I think the house is haunted. I think it was an item that we brought into the home, which was a very personal item, which I don't want to really get into as far as who it belonged to because that's who passed. Uh, it it was a blanket is what it was, but I won't get into who it belonged to. But we have seen a shadow and uh, a few other odd things here in the house, occasionally, not very often. So I thought with us talking about the paranormal in general, that I would set this REM pod up, and who knows, maybe something will set it off. I don't know. But you have to, I mean, it makes a field probably, I don't know, maybe a 10, 12-inch circle like around it if they touch the antenna or the box itself. And you were talking about seeing someone after they passed,
Mhm.
like 9 months later. I know of several stories where a person was at work and maybe they got killed. The rest of the family did not know about it. And that person who got killed would come to their home and they didn't even know they were dead yet. They would, in this one instance, they went in and talked, and I think it was his sister, and sat down and talked to his sister for quite a while. And for all intents and purposes, she thought it was really him, but he was actually dead. And I know of a couple instances where that happened.
There's a really good book that for somebody just mentioned in the chat about ghost ships. There's a really good book by a maritime author named Helen Creighton. It's called Blue Nose Ghosts, and she basically went all over the province and got ghost stories from people and ghost ships, ghost stories, the Gray Lady, the Headless Lady kind of thing. Those are very popular. Um, and like with similar to what you were just saying, there's a lot of stories about people that came home from work and sat down and had talked with their wife at lunchtime and then headed out back to work. And the wife finds out later on, gets a phone call that, ma'am, that's impossible. I'm sorry to inform you, but your husband passed away at 10 a.m. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's some pretty wild stuff.
I can't think back to my first. I don't know what my first experience probably was as far as paranormal. I can remember, gosh, I guess I would say I was probably 10 or 12-year-old, and I'm not for sure exactly what I seen, if it was paranormal or something that was weird. I'd been out catching lightning bugs, and you know how when you're a kid you catch them, you put them in a jar, and I had brought them in and set them down. I looked out my window, which the house was low to the ground, as a mobile home was low to the ground, and there was a big oval white face looking in with big yellow eyes. And for all intents and purposes, if I'm not just totally mistaken, I passed out. It scared me that bad. I think that was probably my first thing I ever experienced that would be considered ghostly, or I don't know. I can't say it was a ghost. It could have been something totally different. But when you're a little fella, that's pretty scary.
You did better than I would. Now, if you see a woman sitting on the edge of a bed smoking a cigarette, that's one thing. But when you see something that's just completely, out of the normal way of thinking, I'd have probably done the same, if not worse. But I might have used chamber pot.
Yeah, without going to the chamber pot. You're talking about living in a haunted house. Of course, I lived in a haunted house, and I wrote a book about it, and that's what we're going to be giving away tonight later on. This is the book. We're going to be giving that away here in a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit about it as well. That was the house is actually my grandmother's house. My mom and dad live in it now, but I lived in it for years. The day my grandmother died, the wife, myself, and my young son was on the way to work, and she was on the porch, and we stopped and talked to her. And the last thing I got to tell her was, "I love you, Granny," and that stayed with me a long time, because that's the last thing I ever got to say to her. Because about, I don't know, maybe 2-3 hours later, they called me and told me she'd passed away. And it was pretty shocking, because she was, even though she was older, she had some health problems, but she was, we weren't expecting her to pass away that day, because she was out on the porch and stuff like that. But yeah, we lived in there for a long time, and there was a lot of weird stuff went on in that house.
But at the time, did it seem like overwhelmingly weird to you, or was it just you got to a point where you knew it was weird, but really wasn't that big of a deal because you were used to it?
Well, it was subtle at first. The very first things that was unusual was the telephone would ring, and there would be nobody there. The caller ID wouldn't show who was there. You'd pick it up, it'd be static. That would happen a lot, daily. And I got to the point where I would just answer it, and there would be nobody there, and I would speak as if I were speaking to my grandmother. After that, I guess the next thing that was kind of unusual that would happen would be that you would lay your keys down in one place, and when you get up to go to work the next morning, they'd be in a different place. Or the remote control to the television would be, you'd leave it on the edge of the couch, and wake up the next morning, it's over next to the TV. Good 8-10 foot away, and stuff like that. That happened pretty often too.
Becca could tell you what happens with my lighter. I put my lighter in my pocket, the same pocket every single time. There's no difference. And John, the one that I saw at 9 months after he passed away, couldn't keep lighters, so he was always bumming a light for me. And so I figure what he does, because my lighter goes in my right pocket of my jacket all the time, and I'll find it in pockets that I don't even use, in jackets I don't even wear. So we always know if we can't find a lighter, start looking around. John's messing around. But now, so that kind of thing doesn't bother me at all. I'm glad that it happens, because be that close to someone for that long, I miss them like crazy. And so that actually is reassuring to me. Now, had I lived in a place and had that kind of stuff going on with the phone ringing, and see, that to me feels more of something that shouldn't be there, whereas I think more of the things that I've experienced have been subtle and not like overly intimidating.
Oh, it gets
If
better.
that was happening, I wouldn't be too crazy about that.
Well, one of the things that really that got us to thinking, hey, there's really something going on, was along about, I don't know, 1-2 o'clock in the morning. You could feel something on the bed. You're sleeping, you feel something on the bed, and at first, the first time it happened, it felt like a cat walking around on the bed. And we did have cats, but they were outside cats. So I sat up in the bed, and I'm feeling around. I said, "Oh, we've let one of them old cats in the house." Well, there wasn't no cat there. But even after that, I mean, it happened. It was almost every night that either that would happen, or something would come and sit on the bed, and the edge of the bed would actually depress, even though there was nothing there. That was still happening as of just a few years ago. That was still happening in some of the rooms in the house now. Uh, but that's an odd feeling when you can feel the bed depressed and there's no one there. But none of this was ever scary to me. Uh, I guess right off, it was kind of, I felt like it was grandmother, and it wasn't scary to me. Now it was, some of it was startling, but there wasn't nothing that I thought was really trying to harm me or anything like that.
No, and that's when it happens frequently, and it's not it's. I think with me it was more my age, and it happened for so long that it happened before I can even remember. So I grew up with it. So that's why it didn't have that. It just doesn't didn't have that bad feel to it. I've been in places that have given me that
I know about that too.
time to get out of here deal, So yeah, I'm interested in ghosts. I'm interested in how things are done, and I know that you guys have gotten some really good things that you've caught on audio and stuff like that. Um,
I do have a picture I want to share. Uh, this picture, well, when my grandmother passed away, the house set basically just closed up for, I don't know, probably a year before my wife, and my little young son moved into it. Uh, but she had a rose bush out in the front yard, and we took pictures of the rose bush because it had bloomed out. And that day we took several pictures of the rose. Well, one picture come out unusual, and I want to share that picture with you. It's actually in the book, but the book is in black and white, so you can't actually see the full color of it. And this picture is not manipulated to make it look this way. It's just how it turned out. Only thing I've done, I added my watermark on it on the side that had my name on it, so people wouldn't steal it. But I call it.
A little surprised about that.
What's that? They'll cut it off.
They're going to steal it and they're going to take it off. I heard it from a friend.
Yeah, it happens. Well, I call this. I named it the glowing rose because the plant is actually glowing. I actually, at the time, I shared this on some of the uh, websites that did ghost studies, and I think it was called ghoststudies.com. I don't even know if it's still around anymore. But the picture is kind of phenomenal because all the other pictures turned out fine. And if you'll look at the center rose, if you'll look to the left of it, you can see what appears kind of like a translucent wing or something, which was really cool. And we have never. I mean, I've had people look at it before, and this you got to think this was a long time ago, and there's I don't even know if it was Photoshop back then.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
And then, like I say, the other pictures all turned out normal, but this one was glowing. And I've always kind of, if you look kind of at the top right in there, it almost looks like a small person or something, but I can't say it's what it is. But it's been featured in a few books over the years and things like that. And a few people have tried to take a picture of a rose and replicate it, and they couldn't do it. And that's been years ago. Maybe you can now with the software and such that's going on now. I don't know if you could or not, but that was I guess that was probably, even though I said the other stuff was maybe first, but I guess that was probably the very first thing that happened associated around the house that was weird. But I wasn't living at the house at the time. I don't think it was, anyways. But
so was anybody there particularly? Did they really? Were they into really like roses or really despise roses or anything?
Well, no, my grandmother, of course, had planted that, but my mom was there when we took the picture. And of course, it holds special meaning for my mother. Eventually, the rose actually died, and they've replanted in the same location. My mom and dad actually live in that house now. And earlier you was talking about hearing that scrubbing of feet across the floor. My grandmother always wore house shoes, and it made a distinct scrubbing sound across the linoleum floor in the kitchen. And as of just a few years ago, I heard my mom and dad talking about it, that you could still hear that scrubbing from time to time. Or you would hear pots and pans also. You'd hear the scrubbing, then you'd hear pots and pans bang in the kitchen.
That's, again, you reminded me, that's another thing too that we would hear is movement in the kitchen around the wood stove. We would hear, it would sound like someone was opening the top of the wood stove and stuff like that. So, but again, not scary.
Well, no, I was close to my grandmother. A lot of times at the time she had before that she had a wood stove, wood burner, would burn wood or coal. And I would go over there a lot of times when I was pretty young, and I would like to get around that fire. And I remember when the space shuttle thing blew up, that's where I was at. I was at my grandmother's. I'd walk to my grandmother's house, and that's where I seen it on TV at. Was that you always, certain events happen in your life, but you always remember where you were at. Well, I was at my grandmother's when I found that out, and but I was close to my grandmother, so I guess maybe that's why I wasn't fearful when things were going on in the house. People talk about orbs and how orbs are just dust and all that kind of stuff. Well, I've seen real orbs. I've seen them in the daytime. I'll tell this part. It's in the book, and it's probably better detail in the book than what I can tell it now. But I had went into the kitchen daytime, and I seen these two base about the size of a baseball. They were orange colored, and the two balls were circling around each other, and circling around me. And they would, when you went into the kitchen, they just appeared. And they would follow you through the kitchen, and they were about waist high. Uh, I'd been seeing these probably for probably close to a week. And to be honest with you, I thought, man, I'm losing my mind. I'm going crazy. And so I didn't tell nobody. I didn't tell anybody, didn't tell my wife or anybody about it. And about a week went by, and I asked my wife, we were sitting, I think we was in the living room. I asked her, I said, have you been seeing anything in the kitchen? She said, you mean them balls of light? I said, yeah, I mean them balls of light. And she'd been seeing them too and hadn't said anything. And why there were two of them, I don't know. I could directly say that one of them was my grandmother, but who was the other? Maybe my grandfather. I don't know. He died many years earlier. I don't know, but I know I seen those in the daytime several times, and they were not dust. And I know a lot of these ghost hunters and people who hunt ghosts want to always say that orbs are dust or water droplets or things like that, and sometimes they are, but sometimes they're not too. I've seen them move in on paranormal investigations. I've seen them move in unusual pattern or in an unusual direction or change direction, and it not be attributed to the heat kicking on or air conditioner kicking on or something like that. So you can't just blanket dismiss everything, because I know what I seen in the daytime, and there's no way it was dust.
Well, no, I mean, and I remember, I don't know when we talked about it, but it was some time ago now that you and I were talking about it, and you told me about going to your wife and saying that, and then her saying, "Oh, those." But
Yeah.
yeah, that was hilarious the first time you told me. But I mean,
Well,
it is and it isn't, but
yeah.
it's a little funny, dude.
Well, no, I tell you what, when you're experiencing that, even though we had some stuff going on in the house and we was experiencing some weird stuff, uh, it still makes you question your own sanity if you're not careful. You think, well, I'm seeing stuff, I'm losing my mind. At one point, I could even hear, and I even heard voices in the house, and I thought, man, I'm losing it. I'm losing it, and I still now have no explanation for that, but it was in the same house, so it's hard to say. And other people have experienced the sensation of something walking on the bed. My brother-in-law, he had come in and laid down. I don't know. Was he? I don't even know if he was married then to my sister or not. But he had laid down in the back bedroom, and it woke him up. And he had thought somebody put the dog in there just on purpose to wake him up, but they didn't. It was whatever that is walks around in the house. It's just kind of funny, I guess.
That's every Friday night. Are the nights that is
Yeah.
the night that we're
Barring
on.
any setbacks.
Wearing any set.
Yeah.
Always looking on the bright side, Tom.
Well, today, I traveled. I drove over 5 miles to Lexington and back today.
But
Uh,
you did put some miles on your vehicle today.
yeah, and it was snowing. And when we left here, it was snowing. But as of course we went farther north, it got even more snowy. But the roads were okay. For those who may not know, my wife is 2 years removed, me and her both, from COVID, but she's still having some COVID issues in the forms of migraine headaches and stuff that they can't get to go away. So she had to go see a neurologist. I've been seeing them for a while, and they tried some treatments today. We won't know if they'll work or not. We'll have to wait and see. But it's a long trip. We have to go back in May, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, so we got up this morning at before 6 o'clock and left about 7 or so, and then I don't know. I got back home probably around about 2. So if the bags under my eyes look bigger than normal, that's probably why.
Dude, anytime that you've got the bags under your eyes, anybody that knows you know that you've earned them. You tend to overdo it, but it's your nature. So,
Yeah, I like to
but I
be
mean, today
busy.
that had to happen today because that is terrible what the poor woman has gone through since.
Yeah, it's been bad. She's had a headache every day, no missing no days, every day since we've had COVID, and we had COVID way before there's ever even a talk of a vaccine. Uh, for what that, for what that's worth. If who wants to get it or not get it, that's up to you. But she's had a headache every day since, and some days are worse than others. But you just have to deal with it and move on. You can't lay down and quit and give up. That's just like the ghost stuff. I've been in some hairy situations in that. I've been in situations where uh, maybe some people would have ran. That's why, like the ghost hunter guys on TV. I watched a guy just a little while back. They just got some normal, normal activity, what I would consider just normal routine activity. And man, they freak out and run and scream and stuff. And I don't know if they're just putting on for the TV or they're just inexperienced. But now, me and Tony Pelosi, we done a lot of ghost hunting, and we've been in some situations, and we've both seen a lot of stuff. So it took a whole lot to get us scared. But there've been some times that we was very cautious. How about that?
Well, I mean, that's with having definite activity around. But I mean, I've walked into places and I've been around different situations and in the woods too that
Yeah.
it just feels wrong and you just need to go. My problem is I stick around and for too long. I stick around until because I want to know why I feel that way.
That's me.
But I do end up leaving. But I kind of stall and stay there as long as I possibly can. But there's a lot of times in my life that the place just felt a neighbor's place on the mountain, for example. Now, I'm sure it was the same in your area as it was for us. When you visited a friend's place, you did not go upstairs. That's not. No, you don't, unless you were told to go upstairs or invited. You didn't go upstairs. If you needed to use the phone, you asked to use the phone. You could sit as far as if they had a little landing at the bottom of the stairs, you could sit there, but you did not go any further. Well, I was asked by actually John's grandmother to go up to the top of the stairs and get something. I get up to that top step and I couldn't go any further.
I've
No
been there.
way I was not going there. But with that family, uh, that kind of thing was kept very, very hush hush because I did ask about it, and oh, we don't talk about anything like that in here. And they thought that if you spoke about anything like that, it would be displeasing to God, and so everything was evil by default. And I don't see that.
No, it's not. No, I
There's
agree with you.
definitely evil, definitely evil out there, but not everything is evil by default.
Well, that's the same way. Well, a lot of times with Bigfoot, everybody wants to throw Bigfoot in to being an evil entity or demon or something like that. And that's not always true. When it comes to Bigfoot, I think they have personalities vary, kind of like ours. But as far as ghosts, yeah, there are some things out there that are demonic, but every spirit you run into is not uh, a bad guy. That's at least that's been my experience.
Duke just showed up. What's up, Duke?
Howdy Duke. Uh, but back to when I lived in my grandmother's house, that was, well, it still is, I guess. Have it has activity in it. It really come to a head in the form of a full body apparition, which I won't go into complete details about that, but we three of us seen it at one time, and there was no mistaking of who it was. Uh, that's, of course, I was much younger then. I was still very attractive, but I was much younger. I'm kidding, but anyways, I kind of froze when this thing when we seen it. I froze because it was not that because I was scared, because it was unexpected. And I've noticed a lot of times when it comes to paranormal, uh, your reaction, if you're out there looking for it, it doesn't seem to bother me as bad. I can give you a good example, just like rats and mice. If I'm out in the woods, they don't bother me at all. If they're in the house, I'm liable to put my feet up in the chair. 'cause I don't like them in the house. That they're not supposed to be in here. In the woods, that's where they're supposed to be, or outside. So that's that's kind of like ghost hunting. If you're actually out there looking for it and you find it, it's not as startling or as scary.
I can guarantee you, Becca is back there in that bedroom laughing her rear end off because with the whole mice and rat thing, I don't have problem walking up to an 8 foot giant, but I have a severe problem with mice and rats. The filthy little
And
so and so's. But
we have a
no,
rat problem here. I mean, I try to keep them wiped out, and I've got traps out. I got box traps out, and I've got poison out, and I hate to kill them all, but man, they're so damaging.
well, we had a fire down on. I'm only 2 streets up from the river, and there's a lot of river rats down there, and we had a fire down on the street that's closest to the river, so all the rats ran up here. Now we're up on the third floor, so we're fine here. But down
Hmm.
down when I lived in the smaller apartment downstairs, I was blaming my cat because I'd have party mix in a like a Tupperware container,
Hmm.
and I just slide it under the bed. I mean, it's party mix. It's not going to go bad, so I slide it under the bed till the next night when I was watching a movie,
Oh
it's
no, man.
and I didn't know that there was anything, but here I was getting after my cat, saying, getting her after her, telling her to stay out of there and stop chewing on the plastic and all this and that. No, there was
Hmm.
rats down there, and they were eating through plastic. They were eating through jugs of International Delight. They were eating through anything plastic, and so my poor cat was getting scolded all the time. And it wasn't her; she was under there trying to get the rat. The rat was under there eating my party mix.
uh, well, I think sometimes maybe when people hear stuff like on a paranormal investigation, there's a chance it could be rats. You know, fooling around in the walls or whatever. I don't like them. I got two dogs that they kill more rats than the cats do around here. They're fast and Jack Russell, so that they're if it moves, they'll chase it and try to kill it. So that's kind of how they are. But let's get on with some more paranormal stuff. I got another picture. I'm gonna actually a couple pictures I want to share with you. Let me see if this is it. I don't know if you can recognize this. Let me see if I can. Which you probably won't, Leo, but a few of you might. This is the Benham Theater uh, in Harlan County, Kentucky. Uh, this place was very. It's it's my favorite place. I get asked sometimes what's my favorite place to that I've ever investigated, and this is probably my favorite place that I've investigated. Hmm, it's interesting. I have never noticed that looks like a face in the bottom. But anyways, uh, this was a something that the coal camps built back in the 30s and 40s and ran in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. If you don't understand how the coal camps work, the coal camps would come into an area, and they not only did they provide housing and work for the workers, they also, in some way, they would provide entertainment. And a lot of times they would build a theater like the Benham Theater. And the other coal companies in the area, they would also have uh, they would kind of compete with one another with who was going to have the best shows and the best guests and things like that. And this particular theater here, Lash LaRue, Roy Rogers, and people like that had actually been at this theater. Uh, and once the coal companies and such left, these theaters were usually they tried to maintain them, but they would run down, and they would eventually just be closed down and boarded up. Well, this particular theater here, uh, some of the ladies got together in the area, and they actually got grants and done fundraisers and things like that, and got this theater restored. And this, of course, is a restored picture of it. I've been investigated there several times. Uh, uh, there's been several reports of uh, apparitions in there, and they still have events in there occasionally. But we actually done a film on this called The Specters of the Stage. It's on Amazon and Tubi and a whole bunch of other places. But when we first went into this theater to investigate, there were no lights on. What you see way back there in the back with looks like three square windows in the middle. That's where you come in at, and everything was dark. It was me and Tony Pelosi and the guy who was taking care of the building that lets us in. He stayed with us, not because they was afraid we'd do anything, because he's also interested in the subject. Well, we come in through those doors that you can't see because it's dark back there, and we immediately go straight up the stairs and up to the balcony. And it's totally dark. There's no lights on, and we're trying to fumble around with our little handheld lights. And we say, "Man, we wish we had some lights." Well, a light turns on. And we've actually caught this on film later of it doing the same thing. And there's no light switches. We all three were standing there. There's nobody else in the theater. And the center light turns on. Well, by the time we get done investigating, probably our second trip in there, we usually always try to investigate a place twice, more if we can. And the actual lights that control, the actual switches that control all those lights were up on the stage. So, and there's nobody else in there, but we were talking about needing lights, and the lights turned on for us, which was
So you're
really.
You went in and said, "Let there be light," and then there was light.
And it turned on, yeah, it turned on.
I've heard that somewhere before, but.
And it turned on close to us, and we couldn't explain it, of course. And it stayed on for a long time, and then it finally went off. After we got our lights and stuff set up, it went back off. And it took us a whole lot of investigation to find out exactly where these light switches were. But there's like a big panel, and there's all kinds of controls and rocker switches and all kinds of stuff, to make them work, because you can make them brighter, dimmer, and that type of stuff. And we finally figured out where it was at. And there's no way anybody was down there. There wasn't but three of us in there, and everything was locked up. But that was it was a fun investigation, and we caught some really weird stuff. But one of the entities there, I guess, maybe that's why I like it so much. There was a entity there that called herself Jordan, and I don't know, I just felt a connection to that person, and it just kind of hit home for me. And it bothers me that I could not find out who it was. And I tried. I searched death records and all kinds of stuff afterwards to try to find out who that was, and I never could find out who it was. But on our second night there, me and the caretaker go in. Tony is still outside at the truck getting some stuff, and me and the caretaker go in, and we are walking down the aisle going toward the stage, and you hear shouts and people hollering at us from up in the balcony, and there's nobody in there. And I asked him, I said, "Did you hear that?" He said, "Yeah, I sure did." Well, we've come to find out over time that when you first go investigate a place, you may not get as much activity, but once those entities understand that they're there, the second time in, they're more apt to do like that. They may holler out at you or do a lot. We caught a lot of evidence on that film. I wished at the time we had better cameras, which now we do, but there's still some good evidence in there. Big brilliant flashes of lights out of the blue, all kinds of EVPs, interesting EVPs. We got one guy's name, and at the time we had talked to the mayor of the town, and she gave us a box of old pictures and stuff from the school and yearbooks and stuff like that. And in that box was this picture of a bunch of people standing up on stage. I can't remember the date. It was probably in the 40s. And on the back of that picture, it lists all the people that's on the stage's name. And we had got this name of the guy that was on stage, and we didn't discover this till after the fact, which was really amazing. And you hear his name real well. And he, if I'm not mistaken, he was a coach and a teacher there at the local school.
I wonder what it is with theaters though, because that seems to be a very, pretty common thing. And one of the theories is that when people would go and they put on any type of performance, when they say that they leave a bit of themselves on every stage, maybe there's something to that.
Well, I think that people, a lot of times, entities will go to a place that made them happy.
Mhm.
And you got to think about, let's say, back in the 40s and 50s when these guys worked hard in the coal mine all the time. Their entertainment was there. They was happy there meeting Roy Rogers or Lash LaRue, or you know what I mean, or watching a show, and that was their happy family time. And so it makes sense that they would want to return there. To me, you want to go to a place that makes you happy.
Working in the mines, and then this is the place where you go to unwind and have all your fun and have all these great things. So yeah, that makes sense too.
Uh, we actually in the film we interview a guy who worked there, and he was telling an interesting story about I think it was when Roy Rogers was there, which Lash LaRue was also a cowboy guy. Uh, that before the show they would sell these what we call a cap buster or cap gun, and he said all the boys would buy these little cap guns, but they would tell them, don't shoot them during the show. Wait till it's over. So, but of course, we put the little things in and shot away. Boys are.
Yep.
But that was a guy that worked there, and then Miss Wanda, who was the mayor at the time, who really helped us out on that. She passed away about a year or so ago too. Fantastic woman. She could tell some of the awesomest stories. Even like Lash LaRue, she told a story about Lash LaRue that when he had come to Harlan County, they got him to play a poker with them, and they took all of his money. They, they beat him in poker and left him. It took every bit of his money. It was real funny, man, to hear her tell it. And he was supposed to have been a big time poker player when he came to Harlan County. They just rogued him, man, with playing poker.
And there's people like that when they tell a story, you like when I was a kid, I liked to be around, spend time around the older people because I wanted to hear them talk, because when they talk, it, they could just draw you right in with a story. And my friends and that would be like, well, no, come on with us. I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm staying right here, because their stories are, you can almost visualize what's going on in your head, and their stories really draw you in. There's some people that are just really really good at that.
Oh yeah, some people are excellent storytellers. They can hold your attention when they tell a story. Let me show you something else too, maybe. Uh, let's see. This here will be pretty good to show. This is an interesting place too. Uh, this is the mysterious Monroe House in Indiana. You talk about a haunted place, man. We actually stayed all night in there. We went up and done an investigation on it, and I was really concerned about going to this because there have been reports of what we consider would be demonic type activity. And but we went there, and we'd actually done a film on it too while we was there, which also I hate to keep playing all my stuff, but it's on Tubi and Amazon and all that kind of stuff. But this house, I don't know if any of you have ever watched anything on the Winchester house. If you're not familiar with the Winchester, it was the people who actually made the Winchester rifle, and supposedly the woman had she'd been told by the spirits to keep building on the house, and she did. Well, this house is very similar to that. It has a lot of offshoots and corners and odd shapes, and uh, it's maybe not as bad as the Winchester house as far as finding a door in the middle of nowhere or anything like that. But it had some really weird angles and stuff. That was the house was just laid out odd. And the best we could find at one time there was a cult that lived there. A guy that ran a cult. Some guys who had robbed a bank or something actually got in there and was holed up in it before. Uh, there was a pharmacist guy lived there who abused his family and stuff. I think they lived on the bottom half and rented out the top half to other people. But it was really a weird place, and we caught some good evidence there. And actually, one of our investigators, a seasoned investigator, uh, had kind of a meltdown there with what is known as the Red Room, if I remember correctly. And supposedly, and best we could find out, that was where the father had been mean to his own children, torture wise, and she just I don't know if it was just a special connection with her being a female. She had more of a connection with the children's side of it. But that was an interesting place. I'll tell you something we did catch there that was really unique for us. We call what we call a reverse EVP. Uh, I know you're familiar with electronic voice phenomenon. Well, this year was actually spoken backwards, and so I had to put it on software and flip it around to see what it said, and it was almost like a sing song effect what it was saying, and it was almost like it was singing it, and it was I'm a old misguided soul, I'm an old misguided soul over and over. So it was kind of neat to catch something that's speaking backwards. But we caught a few of them like that, and the basement was a very unusual place, and I think it's a place that Nick Groff had found some bones and stuff in the crawl space down there.
Yeah, the one that had shot himself in my grandmother's house.
Mm.
I actually found a piece of. I mentioned it on I think last week's show that I had found a piece of his skull in the woods across the street. Because back then they got the body out of there and then said, here you go. There, you clean up the mess. So then what they would do is take the mattress, light it on fire, and if they even bothered to do that. Uh, but yeah, I found a piece of his skull, and I took it back to my grandmother's, thinking it was just a piece of bone and wondering what it was. And that was the worst whooping I ever got from my grandmother. And I was told to take it back and put it exactly where I found it. And I'm thinking, well, I don't know exactly where it was. What if I don't put it right back in the exact spot? She had me completely freaked out that I wasn't going to put it back in the exact spot. She just said, well, you make damn sure that it goes back as close as you can to where you found it. But she took a yardstick, and that it was probably my grandmother was not. She had no problem walking up to you and cuffing you upside the head for no reason whatsoever, but she didn't mean anything by it.
That's
She was
just the way it
tired.
was, man.
Oh yeah.
That's the way it was back in the old days.
Well, yeah. I'd walk behind her and untie her apron. She'd turn around and slap me across the face. But that's just the way it was.
Now
But
on the Monroe house there, they had found some what they said was bones, of course, under in the crawl space. But I think they also found some stuff that they attributed to the occult. Uh, some kind of stuff with some hair and stuff like that in it. Uh, but that was a that's a really I enjoyed going there. I wouldn't mind going back there to be honest with you. But we slept the night in there, and while we let the cameras run, we actually caught some stuff moving and shadows, and we were laying there asleep. So it was a good investigation, and I enjoyed it. But now I was concerned going there because of the activity, because it was associated with devil worship and the occult and that type of stuff. Even though not every entity there was, you know, was into that, was part of that cult, but what I've discovered over the years that with about any haunted location that has multiple entities in it, usually there's one entity that is dominant and it kind of controls the others to some degree. I know we've been in places where uh, the dominant entity would not let people speak or tell them to shut up or something like that. We've had that happen quite a bit.
Well, see, and that's my issue with purposely going looking for a ghost and stuff like that. Is if it has to do with anything dark, I'm not. I'm not. I don't want anything to do with it. And if that's the feeling I get, then I'm gone. 'Cause I
Well,
don't.
you're subject to bump into that anywhere. So,
Yeah, and but like I said earlier, that it happened to me in houses. It's happened to me around people. It's happened to me in the woods. So,
mhm.
um,
Well, that's what people may not think about when you go to the woods. You think about, I mean, you may look for known animals or Bigfoot or something like that, but you got to think about all the Native Americans, all the early settlers and stuff. They lived and died in these mountains where I'm at and where you're at. They lived and died there, and you don't know actually know where because it's been years and years, hundreds of years. If you're not, you're not for sure. It'd be 200 or 300 years, and so you don't know what you might bump into out there.
that's not something you can prepare for, no matter where you go. It's whether you're looking or whether you're not. You don't. You can't really prepare for that because you won't know until it happens, and then
Uh,
even after it happens, you may not know.
Well, now another interesting thing about the Monroe House was that it spontaneous combust a time or two. It actually caught fire, and but they was able to put it out. So it's a interesting it's an interesting place, and the history is it's really hard to dig a lot of history out about it because there's just so many stories associated with it. It's hard to really keep the storyline going and stuff like that. But a real interesting place. I wouldn't mind going back there. Had some experiences there. Have you ever been touched by ghosts?
Uh, just the just the finger that I squeeze in of my thumb and I squeeze back. I mean, I can only assume it was either a ghost or an extremely fast person, but there was
I've been
nobody supposed to be there.
I've been touched a few times. The first place, I guess, first time I ever got touched was on back of the neck. I believe. I believe so. I know that was one place when we was in the old jail in Harlan, Kentucky. Uh, we actually did a film on that too. But I got touched there, and that's unusual. I didn't freak out or nothing, but that was unusual too to have something that you can't see touch you. But there's one thing that I want to share another picture. Let me get to it. Jimmy Blanton had asked about Portal 31, which is a tourist attraction now. Uh, but for years it was ran as an old coal mine. It was ran as a coal mine. This is a picture of me actually underground in a coal mine at Portal 31. Uh, it ran for years as a coal mine, and once this level, they quit working it. They just drilled a big hole up into the next seam of coal, and they worked it up there, and they would push the coal through the hole and use the belt system in the old mine. That way, they didn't have to, tear all the mountain up and put a new belt structure and all that. But during that time, there was like I'm gonna have to pull from memory now because I've not had a chance to really prepare on this. There was like over 30 different nationalities working in there. They were like 250 fatalities over that span of time while it operated. Uh, Small kids worked there. I mean, I'm talking anywhere from about 10 to 13-year-old actually worked in the coal mine. This is a place that once all the mining was done, they turned it into a tourist attraction, and it's had people from all over the world to come and do this tour. And they put you on a little cart, underground cart, and they got animatronics and stuff like that back there. And you stop at sections, and it tells you the story about the coal mine and about the people and how they used to get the coal out with the mules and pull them out. And that is a very haunted location as well. We've had we actually did a film on that. I hate to keep plugging all my stuff, but we did a film on that, and we caught weird lights, uh, EVPs, funny like mist going through the air, and it's really a fun location. But if you're a bit claustrophobic, you don't like the idea of having like a zillion ton mountain over top of your head, you probably don't want to get in there and walk around. You want to just do the little the little tourist thing, which is really neat. I really like it. That's how I first went up there. We went up there, took my mother-in-law up there, and we just done the tour. Just have something to do. It's fairly local, and which is, the tour is really cool. But it's a very haunted location, and you can see where these miners would probably, they worked hard there, and it was very dangerous. The restrictions and the rules and stuff wasn't as tight back then as they are now, and they got a lot of people killed. If I'm not mistaken, it's 200 and over 250 some people died there.
So, have you ever recorded anything, or actually maybe even heard it yourself with anybody ever kind of, I don't know, come through, I guess, and tell you to get out or to leave or get nasty with you or cuss at you or
Oh
anything?
yeah, a lot of times entities. For me, being a Christian, and I know that's not a lot of people frown on it if you ghost hunt and you're a Christian, but trust me, you can do both. There's a line you don't cross, but or at least there is for me. But yeah, I've had entities, either they really like me or they repel from me. And of course, some of them that repel, if they do talk or speak, I've had them heard them say "get out," "f you," and all kinds of stuff like that. So I've actually listened to one a couple of days ago that we did in a film. It told us to get out, and I said, "No, we will not get out." I was just right back at them, and we didn't. We stayed right there. And I think that was when we was in the, I think that was when we was in the Benham Theater. But yeah, that's happened. But now when we was in the when we was in the mine, we was doing an EVP session, and I had my camera. I'd cut it off, and I had it kind of down at my waist, and something pulled it. I mean, it pulled it good, and I thought, hey, something just pulled my camera. And you got to, get to thinking about it. These guys that were from the 30s, 40s, 50s, they have no idea what a video camera looked like back then, and they probably don't understand what they are now. If they do, they've not really seen any. I know they hadn't. The place had never been investigated, and so I guess it's just curiosity for them to see what it is.
He probably just reached over and grabbed it out and have a look at that. What is this thing?
Yeah, I mean, it moved it good. I mean, we're standing there, and I could feel the tug. It didn't touch me that time, but it touched the camera. And then another one of our female investigators, I think it pulled her shirt or hair later on during the investigation. But we caught this red light. Uh, Caught it several times, and to me, it kind of looked like, I don't know if you've ever seen a coal miner's light they wear on their head, and it's got that red rim around it.
Yep.
It kind of looked similar to that, and we got it on camera, and it's actually in the film. Really cool, really cool investigation. Now, I liked it too, but I still think that the Benham Theater was my favorite place to investigate so far. I had a connection there, I guess, is why.
I was just gonna say, it kind of sounds like there's a reason why it's your favorite place, though.
Yeah,
You can tell when you're talking about it is different than when you're talking about other things. So.
yeah, it was. I had a connection there with the entity that called herself Jordan. I don't know. I kind of felt. I don't know. I kind of felt sorry, I guess, in a way, for for how they talked and about their how they said their name. I don't know. It just felt. I felt a sorrow and a sadness associated with that person in particular. Uh, Another thing too, even the thing with the Benham Theater and Portal 31, was they both were big things during the coal booms back in the 30s and 40s and 50s. And here in Harlan County, Harlan and Bell County, in this general area, we had what's known as the coal wars in the 30s, where the union tried to come in and unionize the workers. Well, this led into bloody fights with killings and dynamiting and blowing people up, and it was just unreal. Well, they, the coal mines would hire their own. It was kind of like a cop or a deputy or something like that, but they worked for the coal company, and some of them were kind of brutal. So one entity that had come through, we'd asked a question about that worked for the coal company, and so supposedly he had killed quite a few people, and he called himself a detective, but really he just worked for the coal company as what we would now call a security guard. But they were brutal. I mean, there was a lot of killings, and the National Guard were called in several times to. You think they would be on the side of the workers, but they weren't. I actually in the films we did, I think it's in Prison Spirits film, I believe is what it's in. I've got old video of of people going to work, and you can see pistols. They got pistols on them, man, going into work because of all the violence that was going on. It's really a bloody rough time. So it's not surprising that areas such as those have activity associated with them because there's a lot of tragedy and death, and even though there's that, there's also good times of working and providing with for your family and things like that. So
Yeah, it's not surprising at all, and you would have both. You would have the things from the from the battles and stuff like that, but you'd also have, and that's what I kind of get the feeling that you were dealing with at the theater there. I think that wasn't necessarily the way that you talk about it. It doesn't necessarily feel like to me that uh, it was anything violent or whatever, tragic maybe,
mm-hmm.
but for you to feel that uh, maybe she died before, you know, a long time before her time, but it doesn't necessarily seem like it was anything violent. Just maybe a heavy, sad feeling, maybe.
Well, during that time too, there was a lot of like influenza type stuff and things that wiped out whole families.
Yeah.
Now, and I don't know if she referred to herself as Jordan. I don't know if that would be her first name or last name. It's just hard to say. I know the name Jordan for a first name didn't really become very popular until Michael Jordan would come along in basketball, and that kind of accelerated it. But now outside of the Benham Theater, across the street, I hope I'm telling this correctly, I think that was where they had the office where they paid the men. Well, on top of that building was these big machine guns, and they had actually used it to kill some people right there in the street, right out in front of the theater, and blew a car up and everything right there within within a rock throw distance of where the theater doors are. So it's a very tragic place. Very a lot of energy there, and then when you add in also parts of Harlan City are built on Indian burial grounds. So you got a whole lot of sources there, I guess, or factors, or indicators, or markers, or whatever you want to call them, for paranormal activity, and it seems to be a whole lot of it.
So I wanted to ask you tonight some of the more famous places and get your opinion on whether you think it was legit, or like, well, the Amityville Horror House. You
Mm.
have one camp saying that they just wanted to, they pulled this stunt and they wanted to get out of there, and you have another camp saying, oh, this, that place is just, it's full of demons and all of that. What do you think about that place?
Well, I've not been there, and I know there's two, like you say, there's two camps. For a long time, I always thought there was legitimately something to the story, and then years later, you find out where well, it was all just made up. That nothing really went on, and then I guess I lean more toward the third idea that I heard about it or read about it was that there was some activity that was very low. I guess you call it low grade or very slight activity, and that they built upon real activity and made it bigger than what it was to sell it, of course. And that to me that sounds probably more feasible.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's pretty well where I'm at too. Is I think that they really sensationalized what. I mean, we do know that the family was murdered there,
Mm-hmm.
but not everywhere where there's a murder do we have all of these crazy things
Right.
happen. Sometimes, there's places where hundreds of people have died on a battlefield and nobody ever sees or hears anything. So,
Yeah, true.
but yeah, I always felt that. I think something, we know that the murders happened, and I think something happened, but they saw their opportunity and kind of something happened there, but it wasn't to the extent that it got sensationalized and blown into and all of that. So that's, yeah, I guess pretty well where I stand on that one. Um, and I wanted to get your opinion because this is one thing that I don't think that you and I have ever talked about. The Warrens. What do you think of the Warrens?
Uh, hmm, that's a good question. I enjoy some of the movies that are based on some of the research, and I think they're probably some of their stuff is probably really good and tight and legit, and I think some of it is probably embellished a lot, and then you'll find that a lot with almost any whether it be paranormal or Bigfoot or whatever UFOs, you'll find some embellishment there. And once money gets involved, if you're selling stories and stuff, of course the embellishment becomes easier because you're going to get paid for it. I'm not that kind of guy because I'm just honest. It is what it is, or what I think about it. That's just the way it is. So I like some of their stuff. Uh, I've not followed them very, very closely. I honestly, I don't hardly watch any paranormal, any Bigfoot stuff, or anything very often. I don't even watch podcasts very often. If you see me pop on your podcast, it's a miracle because usually I don't have time to listen to other people. I don't mean that in a bad way. I just don't have time. There's some I would like to listen to and things I'd like to watch, but a lot of times I just don't have time.
I try to do it early on Saturday mornings or Sunday mornings, a little bit, but I have never sat through a full episode of a ghost hunting TV show because I took one look at whatever one that I was watching and thought this is the ghost version of Finding Bigfoot, so I have no desire to watch that. And but again, with the Warrens, same thing. I think they were legitimately involved in at least investigating things that were legitimate.
Sure.
Whether their conclusions were legitimate or not, that who knows. But then once you become a business, a paid business, things are going to change, and you're not going to be so honest anymore when it comes
Yeah,
to.
that happens.
You're gonna find, say, if you need some money, well, you're gonna find something at this house, or
Mhm.
you don't get paid, kind of
Right.
deal. So
Yeah. Well, as far as paranormal goes, it's it's not like a light switch you can click on or off if you're doing it legit. I mean, you may go into a place and not get anything, not even get a goosebump, as we call it, and then you may go back to that same very location, and the next night and it be just off the chain. It's just not something you can do on demand, and if you're into it for the money, you just about have to do it on demand. And I used to watch quite a few of the ghost hunting shows, and occasionally I'll stop on one now. But uh, some of them where they're getting possessed every show, no, that's phony baloney. It's for TV and it's for ratings or money or whatever. And I like all those guys, and I'm not trying to run anybody down. I mean, if that's their deal, go for it. But they're for entertainment, and I think legitimate research and legitimate shows and documentaries can be just as entertaining, but you can do it in an honest way, and that's what I always try to do, anyways.
And that's the thing, is that people don't think that there could be a paranormal show or a Bigfoot show where you could hold an audience by just going out and doing the research. That you have to get results every show, and you have to, before every commercial there's a cliffhanger and all.
Yeah.
No, I think the majority of people that will still associate with in the Bigfoot community, or asylum, I call it the asylum, but anyway, uh, I would watch them because they're not getting results every single time.
Right.
And I think about the majority of the people that I know feel the same way. They would rather watch um, an honest person go out and try and get just a little something here and there than they would with a lot of the Bigfoot shows, where they make it seem like there's going to be this big drastic find, and they don't find anything, and they're not going to.
They've got a hit on the thermal, and it ends up being a goat tied up to a fence post.
Yeah, but I think they highly underestimate people's interest in. I think they would rather see real, honest research being done than some of the foolish stuff that has somehow made it on, that they thought was good enough to put on TV.
Well, my thing with the paranormal and Bigfoot is the shows that embellish and fake, or whatever you want to call it. A lot of times they put out information that is bad, that filters through the communities, and then real researchers have to try to clean that up. And well, some people you're not getting back. They're going to believe that stuff they put on TV that really is not true, and a lot of times it's really not true at all. So when it filters out into real research world, you have to try to clean that up. As far as yeah, World Bigfoot's got it right. I know I ain't gonna get into that. That makes people mad at me. So, but anyways.
And they get downright vicious too. But I agree too, Duke, big time.
But I'm like you. I think if you do honest work and honest research, it can still hold people's attention, especially when it comes to paranormal. If you go to a location, that location has got history, the building's got history, the land's got history, and if you incorporate that in, along with some witness testimony, and then your investigation, even if your investigation don't have a lot of bells and whistles, you still entertain the audience, and you've informed them, about the location and what its history is. And to me, that's more important to get it right. And a lot of times on these paranormal shows, they go into them, and you get your standard questions, which we all use. What's your name? Why are you here? But a lot of times in our investigations, and it don't always make it to the finished product, or even on our YouTube, we have questions that I don't see normal investigators ask about, because I'm interested, and I know when me and Tony investigated together, he was also interested in what's it like on the other side. My opinion is there's some kind of hierarchy on the other side, and there's certain things that they cannot talk about. What the punishment is, or whatever, I don't know, but there's certain things they cannot tell you. They're not allowed to tell you. So we try to ask questions. We always try to ask questions in a way to get answers about that. More than just why are you here, or how did you die, what year is it, and that type of stuff. I'm interested in really what it's like on the other side, and how the rankings. There is a ranking system somehow in the in the spiritual world that we don't know very much about.
Well, I mean, you can't, to make any further claim on that. We don't know, right? And Duke is kind of cracking me up with his Dr. Footprint comment, but anyway, yeah, but yeah, that would not surprise me at all. I mean, it's not like you don't just pass away and everything wherever you go is, there you would think there would be some kind of structure to that, and
yeah, Well, like I said, I know there's several places we've investigated that there was one entity that was dominant, and I know other people has said this too. And I think sometimes who the dominant entity is, it feeds off the energy of the other entities if there's more than one in the location, and maybe that's how they control them because they are stronger and they can take their energy. I don't know. It's just kind of thinking out loud, I guess. But I do know a lot of times in locations there is a one entity that is dominant.
But I mean, that's the difference. You know that because you've experienced it, but you're not. You're throwing it out there as the rest as you're kind of just throwing it out there. This is what I think. This is my opinion. You're not stating it as a fact. And what I find in any type of investigating, whether it's Bigfoot, paranormal, whatever, too many times people will take what they think and they will present it as a fact and say, this is the way it is. If you say any different, you're wrong. I'm right. I said that this was a fact, so it is a fact.
Non-believer, you get that you're just a troll. You're a non-believer, or
Yeah.
you got to train your eyes. That's the one I like.
Oh, I love the one I love is when people try to tell me that there are 956 Bigfoot in a picture I've only taken of the area. There's nothing in it besides trees and bushes. No, no, no. I see 183 and they all have 5 kids.
Yeah, there are always, that's something that's kind of new. It's come along. Is that anytime you post a picture of Bigfoot, it's always got a baby now. Used to that wasn't a thing.
That was yeah. We were talking about that the other day. How
Mhm.
that's only something that's come along within a few years after I actually got online.
Yeah.
Prior to
Well,
that, you never read anything really about juveniles.
well,
And
for
especially,
years I never really done any Bigfoot research online. I never shared anything. I researched Bigfoot, of course, but I didn't share anything. I didn't even know there was a big community of weirdos like me.
well, neither did I.
I want to share another picture, and there's a good story behind this, or I think it's a good story. And some people may not be able to see it. I almost threw this picture out. This was caught on a security camera. This was a convenient grocery store like place where they have gas and a grill, and you can go in and get chips and pops and things like that. Well, one of the people who owned it, which they don't own it anymore, somebody else has got it, uh, he would stay there at night in the little room, and he had the cameras and all that kind of stuff. And he hears this noise, and he looks on the camera, and there's a guy. There's a guy standing there, and that thing, you say I got it outlined there, but there's a thing there in front of him. That's a mop. That's a mop bucket's what that is. And on the left is the counter and seats. Uh, but I almost threw this picture away because I couldn't see it. And then, of course, I fooled around with it a little bit, and it's clearly a man standing there. Well, the guy had seen this that was staying there, security guard, which his family owns it, and so he stayed there sometime. Uh, he took his camera out and took a picture of the monitor and his figure out there walking through the store, and it terrified him. So he left. He left the building. He left the store. He went out the door and didn't go back till the next morning. He was, and I know the boy real well. I won't tell his name. Good fella, good family. Uh, but from my understanding, and I know the store very well, fairly well too. This was the previous owner. When he passed away, best I can remember, he wanted his kids to run the store. Well, one of them that controlled it didn't really have time or had something else they did, so they ended up renting the store out, and they would tell the people who took it over, which captured this picture, uh, things would fly off the shelf sometime. Uh, Coolers, the pops would just start falling down out of the blue. And this guy here that actually owned it, well, I'm pretty sure that's who he is. That's kind of how he dressed most of the time with a coat on or sweater, whatever that is. And he must not have been too happy about it. Is what they was kind of able to determine. But that's a local local place, and somebody else has got it now, so I don't know if they're having activity or not. They wouldn't let us come in and investigate it. Um, they were afraid it might hurt their business. But
which is probably the exact opposite of what it would
well,
probably
that's
would.
what I said to us. It'd probably be a little bit different. I mean, you can kind of see that there's a figure there. It's pretty neat. Good capture. You see, even when you don't outline it, you can see there's a figure there. And he watched the boy that was staying there. He watched the figure disappear. So that's kind of what scared him. At first, he thought there was actually somebody broke into the store, and then he watched him disappear and realized, there was nobody in the store. The doors were locked and everything. So he tore out of there. He was pretty scared, and I understand it.
Yeah, and that when it's the same with people's houses, whether it's paranormal, Bigfoot, or anything like that. When people stop what they're doing and abandon their home or their job or whatever, and just get
Yeah.
up and bolt, I'm a little more inclined to pay attention to what they're saying.
Yeah, it's that I'm sure that was a freaky thing for him late at night, and but they told about potato chip bags and stuff just flying off the shelf and everything during the daytime. So that's kind of a neat local story. And Jim, I better not say exactly where it's at, but I'll tell you someday, and I'll tell you you're not far off. How about that? Well, I guess it's getting close to time that we better give away the book, right?
A good thing you remembered. I didn't.
Oh, I never forget, man. I never. What's Troy Polamalu say? Always
You never
working.
forget. We can
Always
talk.
working.
We can talk in the morning, and then you'll say, "Can you do this or whatever?" And we talk again in the evening, and you'll say, "Can you do this?" Well, no, I can't because I already did it this morning when you asked me to.
Well, that's just because I got a lot on my mind, man.
Yeah, but you never forget though.
Uh, I'll try. Well, I'll try not to forget when I'm giving something away. How about that?
Yes.
Okay, guys. Well, I'm going to give you a. Let me get this in front of the camera. This is my book I wrote about living in a haunted house, which was my grandmother's. If you was on earlier, you probably heard me talk about it a little bit. There's quite a few things I didn't talk about on the live feed that's in the book. I'm going to give this away. I wish I'd have brought a pencil in here, and I didn't, because I was going to write the number down first. But of course, today's been hectic with all the traveling that I did. So what we're going to do, we'll do it like we did last time. Uh, we'll guess a number. Let me get a good number in my head. Okay. Uh, we'll guess a number between 1 and 50. Ever who guesses the number wins the book. And you are free to start guessing at any point. And I will ship it out to you. No charge to you.
And in the meantime, while we're doing that, we've got for March. We're pretty well all booked up for guests for
Yep.
March. 1 week, we've got a paranormal investigator coming on. We've got a Bigfoot guy coming on. We've got a retired professional wrestler that's into cryptids and all kinds of mysteries coming on. And
He told a very funny story a little while back about somebody who thought he wasn't, that he lived out of the United States, and he wasn't. He lived in it was it was funny.
They had asked him if he had dual citizenship. They asked him where he was from. He's Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico.
Yeah, he says, and then they say, "Well, do you have dual citizenship?"
All right.
Yeah.
We got keep guessing, guys. Keep guessing. Win the book free. Last week we gave away a DVD, which is already mailed out. I hope the lady has received it by now. But if you're just tuning in, giving away a book, I'll gladly sign it for you, ship it to you. Won't charge you anything. You can guess all you want to. A number between 1 and 50. But yeah, we got some good guests lined up for March. Uh, we got 1 week that is available. Uh, we plan on maybe getting somebody for that too. If not, you're gonna have to listen to just me and Leo talking. You don't want that, so. One thing I do want to address tonight, guys, when me and Leo was planning this show, the whole idea of a show, we looked at what nights were available. We didn't want to go on a night where somebody else already had a show. So we tried our very best to pick a night and a time slot that didn't step on anybody else. We would not do that intentionally. So if we have stepped on your show by putting our show on at the same time, it was totally unintentional. We studied over it for a while, what nights would be best for us and what time frames would be best for us. We would rather get along with everybody, and we don't want to make no enemies doing our little podcast or little show. So we've tried hard to pick a night and a time slot where there wasn't any shows. It seems like now maybe there might be some shows that we've found out about that happen on the same night, and that was never our intention to do that. So don't think that we was trying to horn in on your audience or anything like that.
No, but and I'll tell you what bothers me about it, and I'm not going to go into details on who or anything like that, but because that's we another thing we decided when we said we were going to do this show was we're not going to stoop to other people's level on
Right.
attacks and stuff. But here's the thing: Tom and I put the thought in, and we looked around, and we have a lot of friends out there, and we definitely did not want to step on anybody's toes, and we made the extra effort not to do that. Now, if everybody could look at things that way, people would get along a lot better. But now we have someone who it didn't want that. That wasn't good enough. They changed the night of their show to directly compete with our show, and you've already lost, buddy, because we're not in a competition here. This isn't
No,
supposed to be a competition.
no.
It,
And we want to put out, and
we,
not that anybody would have a, yeah, you can actually keep guessing more than once. So I seen where somebody asked that, I think it was Justin. And we're wanting to just put out good information. We want to share what we know, what our experiences. We're not here to run anybody down. Now, if somebody is, if something is a hoax, we don't care to say it's a hoax. But we're not on here to belittle and hurt people and do all that kind of stuff. It's just that's just normally not in our nature. You have to. I'm kind of easygoing guy. You have to poke me pretty good to get me mad. Uh, but then I'll bet you off like I go too far. But normally I'm pretty easygoing. So
well, and if somebody fires at me, I'll fire back. But I'm not going to waste my time arguing online. What if you really dislike me that bad? Come and visit me, and we'll talk it out face to face. But this online
oh
shooting
yeah.
off online stuff, boy, I'm telling you, that was hard for me to get used to.
Well, I still have a hard time with it. People get kind of angry if you don't agree with them sometimes. That's okay. All right, guys, our time is getting away, so I'm going to narrow the number guessing between 20 and 50. So if you guess a number between 20 and 50, if you hit the number, you win the book. 20 and 50. And you can guess multiple times. And I'll gladly sign it. Oh man, come on. You've been all over it. You've been close. A couple of you've been pretty close tonight. I kind of
And
like doing this.
but you get to give some free stuff away. Who doesn't like giving their stuff
Yeah,
away?
yeah. Yeah, the books don't cost me really much. I mean, I don't care to pay the shipping and stuff like that, and for tuning in, it's a big deal. I give away a book or something. It don't bother me none. I'm glad to do it.
Yeah, that's the thing, Jimmy. Is the if you're looking for drama and you're looking for all of the Bigfoot world gossip and all that, you're that's not going to be our show. So sorry, and you can go watch that foolishness wherever you want. But
And there's plenty of that out
here's
there.
me and Tom and our guests. So
Then there's plenty of that stuff out there. There's plenty of the old run you down and make fun of everybody and that kind of stuff.
So it's ridiculous.
And there's some lines that I have a hard time. Some things, I won't say lines. I guess there's some things that in the Bigfoot and in the paranormal field that I have a hard time believing because it's not been my experience. Now, if I experience, I'll be more than glad to say, yeah, it's that happened to me. So all I can tell you is what my thoughts and my experiences, and hopefully it helps you somehow, and we all get a little smarter somewhere down the road.
Well, if everybody would just do this and work together instead of getting egos involved and trying to make it a contest, then
yeah, well,
never...
at my age and my looks, there's not a whole lot I can do about being popular. At this stage of my life, my knowledge is the most important thing that I have that I can share. I'm over 50 something. I'm going to be 53 this year. So, the days of being a big movie star or a big TV host or anything like that are probably most likely behind me, because there's a demographic that they like to go by on that as far as appearance. And I've never been a handsome man anyway, so I don't. all I can share is knowledge.
Now, somebody at the first of the show called you handsome, but
Did they?
Yeah, but you would look at that, and you would think, you do this all the time. You say things like that because you're like me. If somebody calls you an a-hole, you can accept that better than a compliment.
Yeah.
That's the way I am too. If someone calls me a bad name, I'm like, well, whatever. But if they give you a compliment, it feels all weird.
The number to guess is between, we're going to cut it a little bit more. Let's go between 30 and 50. Guess a number between 30 and 50. And you win the book. And you guys have been so close, man. I don't know. Maybe I picked a weird number tonight. I don't know. Oh. Who's your squatcher? Oh, come on, Mom. Come on, man. Win this thing. Hey, have you seen the old Ginger Billy's got his Tesla car out there? It's so funny. Where he took a little 4-wheeler and made it look like an old ugly Tesla car truck thing. It's so funny.
Our town police just bought an electric car. So yeah, that's going to be interesting. To hear a siren going for 7 minutes, and they're going to have to stop and charge the thing.
It becomes a foot pursuit.
Well, that's kind of what I'm picturing in my head. Is you take off from the cops, and you can actually outrun them in their vehicle.
That old Ginger Belly guy, he's funny as all get out anyways. We're guessing between, what, 30 and 50 right now?
Yeah, I think you said 30 and 50, yeah.
30 and 50, yeah. Come on, guess, win the book, man, win the book. Come on. Tesla, yeah. You see, it's funny as all get out, man. He tears his bumper off and everything. And I love his airbag. His airbag's actually pretty good. Instead of hitting your face, you said you can hit your face and hit. He's got a pillow under the stern. It's funny.
Dad and I were talking about a guy that I knew as a kid. He had taken a steering wheel from a car and put it on his 10-speed bicycle. And he actually made an attempt and had plans all drawn out that he was going to gut a car door and have that, try to gear that up to his bicycle. And we tried to tell him it's not going to work. And he actually tried to do it. And sure enough, kept tipping over. But yeah.
We had a guy growing up. He took a lawnmower and he flipped it the motor. He took the motor, flipped it upside down, and was trying to make a helicopter. True story.
That works.
It didn't work out good. He used to do something else that's funny too. He would take a fishing pole and a hook, and he put cheese on it, and he'd throw it out there next to his old building and catch rats on his fishing pole. He did, man. He really did.
Well, did you hear about the guys that actually it was one of the guys that were trashing me there back in 2017? They were trashing me, but at the same time they're talking about putting raw chicken on fishing line and casting out over this bank and thinking they were going to catch a Bigfoot. Man, you need to stop worrying about what I'm doing and start worrying about what you're doing.
Man, you guys have guessed all around that number tonight. I know I've not missed it. I'm going to roll back up and make sure.
If nobody gets it, Rita should get it.
I'm telling you, they're all over it, man. I'm telling you, they've been all over it. They've hit below it and above it. And
Is a decimal mark? Is it 33?
No, it's not a 0.7. That's hilarious, though. All right, come on. We're looking for a number between, let's go 35 and 50. And you win the book. Don't you want the book? Come on. I'm going to send it to you for free.
That's what it is. That's what it is. They don't want the book, so they keep throwing it.
Not only can I not sell them, I can't even give them away. Man, come on. Come on. It's like watching the halftime show, boys. Come on.
Jimmy's offering to give it away. Last week we had Wendy offering to give it away. We get Jimmy's offering to give it away this week.
I'll sign it and everything. It won't make it any more valuable. At least it has my name on it. Man, I gotta start picking a more common number.
You've got a knack for picking numbers that nobody is.
I know. Well, I want to make it slightly difficult, but not impossible. Between 35 and 50. Hey, Justin, it's not number 44. He's guessed it like 3 or 4 times. Justin Decker has actually won it. He got it 43.
Bless your heart, Justin.
Oh goodness, that's so funny. I know he guessed 44 probably 5 times. Okay, the winner is Justin Decker. He actually got the number. If I can get through all his 44s, the number was 43. That was great. I like giving stuff away, so I'm gonna give something away next time too. It's fun. Justin, if you will email me or just message me on Facebook with your address. Do you want me to sign the book? Yeah, you will. Okay, you said another signed book. Okay, all right. I will gladly sign it and put it in the mail to you if you just shoot me your address. Nobody picked 43. They was all over it. I was like, wow, the invisible number. It's funny. I hope you guys have enjoyed the show. I've enjoyed doing it. I'm a little bit tired, but I get kind of slap happy when I get tired.
Yeah, and we were a little concerned that tonight might be a little rough and bumpy, but it's always going to be a little bit rough and bumpy. But who laughs more than we do?
Oh man, I tell you, when I get tired, my personality actually comes out more.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I get giddy. Yeah.
Wendy's still guessing.
Yeah, she's trying to win last week, though. She's going to give it away.
Hey, Wendy, we got a winner. Wendy's so fun though. She's got stuff. I've talked to her many times. She got bought stuff off of me before.
Yeah, she's been a
She's still guessing.
See you later on, Duke. Have a good night.
Yeah, have a good night, Duke. Thanks for tuning in, man. Guys, I hope you guys really liked the show tonight. I enjoyed talking about the paranormal. I've had a lot of good experiences and a lot of weird experiences. I've had a whole life of weirdness, and wouldn't have it any other way. And I'm appreciative of Leo for coming on and telling about his uh, experience growing up and living in a haunted house. We both have lived in haunted houses, and well, really, my parents live in one now. I don't know how much activity's in it now because mom and dad, I don't talk to them much about that stuff anymore. And Wendy's still guessing.
Yep.
She's great. But I appreciate all you guys tuning in. I hope you enjoy the show. And do you know, Leo, who we got lined up for next week? Do we want to tell that yet?
Next week. What's the date next week?
I don't
Because
know.
this month I'm all screwed up. Whatever.
No, I don't know. What is this? The 18th? So I don't. We don't have anybody. We don't have anybody yet for next week, do we?
Not yet. No. I was. You handle that one, man, because I booked all of March, so you handle that one.
All right. You just keep doing a good job.
Well, I'll keep doing a job, whether it's good or not, I don't know, but that remains to be seen.
All right, guys, we're going to end the stream, and again, we thank you guys for showing up. And no bad luck, we'll do a show next Friday. We're not sure what it's going to be about yet, or if we're even going to have a guest, but it's going to be fun. We're going to give something away, and you'll get to look at me and Leo. And Leo adjusted his camera evidently because it looks a little better tonight. Leo, did you play around with the camera setting?
Actually, no, I didn't do a thing.
Okay, well, it looks better. So
Friday is just a handsome day for me.
All right. Hey, some of us got it, some of us don't.
I think I got the short end of the stick on that one.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. That's not often the afterbirth lives, but here I am.
Oh man.
Hey Jim, thanks for showing up, man. We appreciate you.
All right, everybody, have a good weekend, and some new names in the chat tonight. That's a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing before we go, if anybody's still listening, which I think we got a few in, I have got 2 or 3 new reports in of sightings of either ghost or some type of cryptid or something that I'm wanting to share on the website. I've just not had time because we've been busy this week, but I hope I'll get to them soon. So more things coming.
Oh, a lot more things coming.
Oh yeah. Appreciate you guys. We'll see you next time.
All right. Have a good weekend, everybody.